I hope everyone's having a wonderful 4th of July. A couple of months back, prior to the first Democratic debate, which has seen Harris rise in a couple of polls, she apparently got millions of dollars right after it. So it's safe to say that it was a good night for her, conventionally anyway. There was a segment that Secular Talk did, better known as Kyle Kulinski, or rather, that's his actual name, called "The Biggest Challenger to Bernie Will Be," and it's a bunch of dots, but it was revealed to be Harris. Now I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to actually link the original in the description to encourage more views of it because I want to stay to the point of what his prediction is. But I'm going to play where he talks about Harris being this candidate who's not like the others and actually understanding the times and the way the winds of change and whatnot.
I'm now convinced that the centrist who's going to challenge Bernie in 2020 and give him a run in the primary is Kamala Harris. Here's why I think that's the case. First, Amy Klobuchar did her town hall, and it was a snooze fest. She even had a Jeb Bush please clap moment. It was just as awkward as you would think. She also is just too wordy, and she's not a hard-hitting anti-corruption populist. She's just a standard politician. Now, Elizabeth Warren, I like her, and she's very substantive, but her weak spots are foreign policy. She was way too wonky and wordy in her answers, so there's no pop to, her campaigning. And she's also willing to posture and play politics for perceived political advantage. Like, her impeachment stance was very much like playing to the crowd and just trying to go along to get along and just trying to almost appease and capitulate in order to try to get votes in a cheap way. I thought Bernie's answer on impeachment was way more thoughtful and way more genuine. But like with Elizabeth Warren, we know she's done this before. This is why she didn't endorse Bernie in 2016. It was purely a Machiavellian, political move on her part. So, but, Kamala Harris was just asked about healthcare. And she comes out and says, and the question was worded in a very interesting and hard-hitting way. And she comes out and says, I'm for Medicare for all. And then she stops. And then she goes on to explain the rest of her answer. Now, first of all, that's smart because that's exactly what people want to hear and need to hear because that's the answer and it polls overwhelmingly popular. But it was almost to the point where I knew that her and her team had talked about it and they came to the conclusion this is the answer you have to give and you're going to knock it out of the park. So she says, I'm for Medicare for all, full stop. Then Don Lemon pushes her on it and says yeah, but you're for eliminating private insurance. And the original question was 70% of Americans like their private insurance or something along those lines. And, the response to that, she gave you the right response to that, and this originally came from Bernie. The response is, well, no, that's a little misleading. It's over 70% of Americans want to keep their doctor. And under Medicare for All, you can keep your doctor. So she gave that answer, which is the correct answer, but she admittedly stole it from Bernie. But then here's the part where I went, holy shit, she gets it. She goes, Lemon pushes her, oh, so you want to eliminate all private health insurance? That basically seems kind of radical. And she goes, no, I'm for supplemental private health insurance. And he goes, well, under the bill you're supporting, in 4 years or so, experts say it eliminates private health insurance. And she responds, well, yeah, it's the primary source of insurance, but you could always get supplemental insurance. I don't ban supplemental insurance. That's the correct answer because it allows for this idea of freedom still existing so you can do what you want. But it also covers the bases because you're saying the default system is going to be the correct system, which is a single-payer system, which is a Medicare for all system, which every other developed country has, and we know works better than our shitty system. Not only is that a good answer, it's a better answer than Bernie. Because Bernie, I noticed it tonight too, when he's asked about Medicare for all, the question was phrased in a way where it says, you're for eliminating private health insurance. And Bernie responds not by correcting that and saying, well, that's not exactly true. I'm for Medicare for all as the baseline, as the default, but you could always get supplemental private care. He doesn't respond by saying that. He accepts the premise of the question, oh yeah, I am for abolishing private health insurance, And then he answers moving on from that and goes on to explain how Medicare for All system is the best system. Now, Bernie's correct, Medicare for All is the best system, but it's also true that you should allow people to get supplemental private care, and Bernie's bill does allow for people to get supplemental private care, but he doesn't even state that, and he doesn't even remind people that that's the case, because he's so, convinced that I'm just going to sell people on this idea of Medicare for All, that he doesn't stop for a second to go, well, I should also let people know, like, yeah, you can get supplemental care if you want to get supplemental care. So he bought into the framing of the question. When the framing of the question, it was a tripwire in the question, and he didn't notice it, and he went right over it. So I think that her answer was actually even better than his. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe a word Kamala Harris says, and I think that in office she would basically immediately give the farm away and say, yeah, did I say Medicare for All? Okay, we'll negotiate down to public option. And then that'll probably be watered down to slightly expand Obamacare or something. So I don't trust her. I don't trust her at all. But she is politically savvy, that's for sure. And I'm calling it now. Kamala Harris will be the centrist that gives Bernie a run in the primary. I don't know how close she'll come. I don't know how well she'll do overall. But I don't think it'll be Beto O'Rourke that gives Bernie a run. I don't think it'll be Mayor Pete that gives Bernie a run. I don't think it'll be Biden who's going to announce soon. I don't think he's going to give him a run. So that's why I had to record this video real quick. I made my mind up, and I'm crystal clear on it now. I think Kamala is going to be the one to give Bernie a little bit of a run because she's politically savvy.
All right, so I feel compelled to say that a lot of us like to dream of a dream where you can run for office and not have to worry about appealing to some donors or being part of some debate stage and saying something that almost sounds like a soap opera line, or making a performance that gets people to go, wow, they were really affected by this. But unfortunately, we live in the era of short attention spans and, not really any kind of research. And, for this reason, you can get people to go, oh, Harris was really affected by Biden's support of non-desegregation or opposing desegregating for school busing, even though she basically performed the exact same kind of policies that affected people of color while she was a prosecutor. But that those two things have nothing to do with each other, I swear. But look, people have actually tricked themselves into thinking that this is some kind of people's candidate. And you got to understand, the reason it's going so well over for her, and I just had this epiphany, has a lot to do with her not being around as long as the others, because people have known from the time Booker came around that he was a big pharma boy, just a stooge for the healthcare industry, the private insurance guys. On top of that, he was an Israel, supporter, Israeli government supporter. Let's clarify that. I don't want anybody to, keep playing that anti-Semitic nonsense. People who, love the Israeli government so much that they're willing to look past the murder of Palestinians or, the human rights violations and whatnot. The same thing could be said of Gillibrand. The same thing could be said of Biden. These are people who, for a very long time, have had multiple non-progressive alignments that have disqualified them for, so long. And you got to understand that when it comes to international issues, people pay so little attention to what's going on that a lot of times, if a person does act in a way that is one could consider not progressive, in terms of the world stage, people turn a complete blind eye. They go, oh, she supports, this social issue, like my right to abortion, which is something all the other Democrats back as well. So I don't care if she is backing a government that, murders innocent people just for the hell of it, stuff like that. But, she's been able to capitalize on that sustained lack of concern for actually knowing the truth about her record and throw in some ideas and policies that are clearly ripped off of Sanders, and interwove this with being a young, to some people attractive candidate as far as appearance and whatnot, that it's made this thing where she actually appears to be a formidable candidate to these people for those reasons. All of this cosmetic above the surface crap that unfortunately isn't actually going to change anything, because the person who they're aligning all this stuff with is an empty suit. See, I've explained before, Harris was a statewide politician with name and influence when California had their single payer healthcare proposal come up in the state legislature. I believe the year the same year that she was running for Senate. It was either 2016, 2017. But the point is that she was around. She was here. She could have, mentioned it, spoke about it, chose to completely ignore it. Almost like it wasn't even occurring. But then, this bastard gets in the Senate, and now she's backing Medicare for all. Now she's supporting, uh, you know, the end of private insurance, going further than Obamacare, covering those extra 30 million people that don't have health insurance. Like, when she was completely silent for the healthcare proposal in her own state, you're not going to be convinced this is an issue that actually affects her. As far as like, oh man, I really want to change this. Because if she wanted to, she could have endorsed the single payer bill that was in her state. Nobody would have given a damn anyway, because all the people over here are just as, hopefully ignorant of what's going on as people everywhere else. Except it's in a left wing way. So they'll go, oh, the ACA is better. Why? It's better. So that's the biggest opposition she would get. It really wouldn't have cost her any votes, any support. It's one of those things where her voice, what dare I say, would have actually improved its chances of getting people's attention and steering the public in the direction of supporting it. But that's another failed missed opportunity by our wonderful CA senator. By the way, if you'll notice, she's actually been polling in fourth place in California. Now, they haven't done a poll since, to my knowledge, since the debate happened this previous week, but she has been repeatedly behind Sanders, Warren, and Biden. And I'm very happy. And I know I can tell you one of the reasons for that. People don't like electing a senator or a congressman, whoever the hell, that only serves out a wee bit of their term before they decide to try and get something else. And a lot of it isn't even due to the fact that they like this person, they want them to just stay at the state level. It's because they a lot of times have different presidential candidates that they prefer. So a lot of people who, like Sanders that live in my state of California wouldn't have supported her because she just became a senator and they don't really know as much about her. And she's a lot more likely to turn up as an empty suit from having this blind hidden record. If you oppose Sanders, you're, maybe a Biden or Warren person. You have a little bit of Bernie derangement syndrome, but that's a different story. So she really has had trouble getting her own state to support her for those reasons, along with some other ones that we can get into. And yet people are still saying she's on the rise. She's coming up, all from one debate performance. And you gotta understand, with me, it's always a thing of I like to believe the people that I'm surrounded by as contemporaries do not have attention spans that are the size of crumbs on a cookie. But it really seems like it is, because if someone can get on stage for one night and say a couple of supposedly heartfelt lines, and that changes your position about them so much to where they climb up 6, 7, 8 points in the poll, and it's not about actual contemporary. And this is what kills me. If she came up there and made a compelling case about Medicare for all, about ending these wars like Tulsi, or really a series of issues, if she came up there and spoke about those in some kind of heart-wrenching, we need to change this way, that was accompanied by statistics and various reasons for that position, I would totally get it. But again, this is a person whose career as a prosecutor was anything but friendly to minorities. And now she's trying to use the card of I was a minority who was repressed by this system to make us feel sorry for her, when she wasn't even sorry for the people that she had the chance to save as a prosecutor. Oh my God. You know what? I'm finished. So I recommend checking out Kyle's channel. He already has 600,000 plus people there, so he doesn't really need my my endorsement. But I believe in giving people credit when they get it right, and he definitely was able to figure out that this was not an honest actor. These empty suits in the primaries, unfortunately, are going to keep coming around. They're always going to have the same thing of keeping quiet about a lot of issues until they decide they want to run for something higher, and then suddenly pretending as if they're so concerned. And how could we let this happen? So, thank you.